Welcome to the Sporticos Football Stories podcast. It's Wednesday, the 21st of August, 2024. I'm Craig Resnik-Hanson, and today I'm joined by the Daily Mail journalist and lifelong Wrexham fan, Nathan Salt. We talk about the transformation at the club since the arrival of its Hollywood owners, the highs, the lows, the haters, and much more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy our chat with the one and only Nathan Salt. Hi, Nathan. How's it going?
Very good. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Well, I'm very, very excited about this one. This might be one of the best ones we've done because it's not every day that a club can change so rapidly in such a short period of time, especially for its fan base. And that's the main focus of what we do here. So let's start at the beginning. When did you start supporting Wrexham, and in what kind of shape was the club at that point?
Oh, I mean, I was watching Wrexham previously when they were in League One, almost 20 years ago. I was famously a mascot, or say famously in my family anyway, famously a mascot back in 2005 when we had Ben Foster in his first spell. Obviously, people know him now from when he came back, but Ben Foster we had Dennis Lawrence, people like Chris Llewellyn, guys like Juan Ugarte, still my all-time favourite Wrexham player, because he was kind of exotic and not from Wales and, from the Basque Country, so that was always very exciting for me as a kid. And and while they weren't super successful on the pitch, I very much enjoyed following the team. Then obviously we won the LDV Vans Trophy, as it was known then, in 2005 in Cardiff against Southend. So, it wasn't all doom and gloom, but definitely it was on a much more smaller scale. And then it was a kind of gradual decline, dropped out of the Football League, and then I think we thought we'd be able to get back quite quick. You always have that feeling that, you have 1 year down there and then you'll be able to go straight back. And we won comfortably on the opening day, first game in National League or non-league. And then there we were, over almost 15 years later. It was just staggering, really, that it took us that long.
How bad did things get when you were down there, and how did things change as a fan? So in terms of, did the attendances change? Was there not enough money, to keep the facilities up like before? How did your experience change?
Yeah, I mean, when you go to non-league, you're very, very lucky if you get a seat to sit in or a rail to sort of rest on. It's it's a very humbling experience, I think, when you come away from these big stadiums and you go into non-league. And we had to get used to that. We became very much part of the furniture, go into all these clubs that we felt we were bigger than, but ultimately, we were on a level playing with. We were being bypassed by. We had a season where we finished runners-up to Jamie Vardy's Fleetwood. We got 98 points, and we lost immediately in the playoffs. And that left a mark for a long time. That left a scar for a good few years. We then lost in the playoff final to Newport, and really thereafter it was fan-owned by then, and kind of, we used to do things like build the budget, and you used to sort of chuck money in a bucket before games, and that would eventually build next season's transfer kitty. And, when you do stuff like that, it really does hammer home just where you're operating at. You cannot go and get the best players. You cannot live beyond your means. You cannot really afford to take a chance on anyone. You have to have hits, surefire hits. And we did find those over the years, and we had some very good managers. Kev Wilkin was very good at recruitment. Dean Keats was a very good manager. Gary Mills' first season was very good, and then second season was some of the worst football I'd ever seen. And, so there were very highs and lows. But yeah, attendance is really, I think this is one of the big misconceptions that, Wrexham have only just gathered all these fans that they have now, overnight since Rob and Ryan came into town. Wrexham was still getting 4,500. If it was a really big game and a really big occasion, Wrexham were doing quite well. You could still get over 5,000, pre-takeover in the National League. So the crowds have always been there. Obviously, when you win, you get maybe some more fans that are a bit more blasé to the whole thing. Winning does help. Winning grows any fan base in world football. That's just a fact. But, Wrexham have had a real nucleus, a real core fan base that have stuck with them through the many highs now, but the many lows that we had before that.
As a Warsaw fan, I'm very happy to hear some nice words being said about Dean Keats.
Yeah, I mean, I love Dean Keats, and he came in at a really tough time. Second time round, there was a lot of frustration and I think anger a little bit that he left us when we were in a playoff push and he went to Walsall. And we completely unravelled. If he'd have stayed, what would have happened? We don't know. It's all speculation now, and it doesn't really matter, I suppose. But when he came back under really tricky circumstances, kind of balancing the pandemic. Again, we couldn't really sign players. He managed to keep us up. We were floundering near the bottom. Could have ended up going into National League North. So, yeah, I've got a lot of time for Dean and, what he did. And he did find those diamonds in the rough that we needed at that time. And it was just a shame for him that he didn't get an opportunity really to see it beyond kind of purse strings being super, super tight.
How were things during the pandemic? Because I know that if I remember correctly, the EFL put all the games on iFollow, so we were able to watch our games, I think. But if you were still in the National League then, were you able to stream your games?
Well, really, no. The National League was the only way people have been watching National League games now is in large part due to Rob and Ryan since they came in. They were the ones pushing and trying to create this movement to get games streamed. So it was a strange old time with we had radio commentary and you'd have the club commentary and that sort of thing and debriefs. But really the media and the scrutiny and attention for Wrexham has only really exploded post takeover, which I'm sure you can imagine. But yeah, to be honest, watching games during that pandemic time wouldn't have been super fun. So... Yeah. I think that was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I think it's something that we all are happy to forget, that period, at whatever level of the pyramid that your team is in. So let's get on to it then. Let's talk about the huge change, monumental change, which I don't think it's hard to compare it really to any club in a way. When you first heard about Rob and Ryan coming in, did you believe it? And how did you feel?
Yeah, so initially when we heard it was kind of an A-list, a really big name, we thought it might have been Russell Crowe, just because his family used to have a fruit and veg shop in town. It's no longer there now, but that was a tenable link. It made sense, that one, I guess. And that was actually the feeling among the dressing room as well, among the players, that it probably is Russell Crowe. And they were talking about, all his films and things. But no, it turned out to be Rob and Ryan. And as a massive fan of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, scarcely believable. But then you have that natural trepidation of sort of like, why do they want it? And how long would they actually stick it out? And who would they bring in to look after it day to day? Because obviously we knew they weren't going to be sort of boots on the ground every day. But yeah, I mean, I would say we've got the best owners in all of football. I mean, you hear so many stories of people that despise their ownership, and Wrexham are playing Reading this weekend, and they've had a terrible time with Dai Young and their ownership, and it's taken huge protests to raise awareness of that. And you think, well, okay, we've got two Hollywood stars who always smiling, they're always trying to do the best for the town and the football club and help the players grow businesses and grow the profile of the football club on a global stage. And you just think anyone mad at this is just jealous. And we're so lucky. It's like a lottery ticket that's actually come true for once.
To give my 2 cents, I think you're right. That's the thing I always say to friends of mine, because obviously being a Walsall fan or a fan of really any club, especially in the lower reaches, there's just so much hate. And I think it is just jealousy because, like you said, there's no negative to it. I can't see, like, for a start, it's not like Wrexham were this sort of, made up club in like a village somewhere. I'm not going to name any names, but that there are some other clubs that, Wrexham has a huge history. It's a huge club, never should have even been in the National League. And since they've come in, they've not only, built up the club, but also the community, and everything they've done about it seems to be very sort of holistic and respectful. And they really do seem to have this great link with the fan base. And then people say, oh, well, they're just, they're going to try and make money with the docuseries or whatever. And it's like, well, there's something wrong with them wanting to also, like, it's a win-win for everyone if everyone succeeds. And I just think, I don't get what the hate is other than jealousy, right? That really can be the only explanation to me. It's just jealousy.
Yeah, because imagine, if you were a fan of another National League team or League Two team or now League One team, that is an ownership that you would absolutely snap the hand off for. It would be a dream come true to see your team on the global stage. Now, obviously, there are contrarians out there that would say, no, I very much like the club as it is, my club as it is. I wouldn't want, millions and millions of fans pumping millions and millions into my club. I mean, so be it if that's the stance you want to take, but it's completely revitalized the area. So say what you want about the football team, and we really should be where we are now in League One. We've spent money, we spent handsomely to get out of the National League, and the gap between National League and League Two is not as vast. Even if we did lose at Walsall, is not as vast as it is maybe going from League Two to League One. So we're where we were. They said they would build us a League One squad. They've got us to League One in 3 seasons. Very, very difficult to argue with that, back-to-back promotions. But what it's done for the area, I mean, every football club that does well sees that benefit. The football club often are the heartbeat of an area, heartbeat of a town, a city. And with Wrexham, that's definitely true. Where the Kairos, where the racecourse is, I mean, you're not that far from the centre of town, and just everything. If the football team is doing well, everybody feels that lift, feels that buzz. You see people on a match day now excited to be in the cafes, be in the pubs before, be in the club shop, be around the place. Whereas there isn't maybe that dark cloud that was hanging over us in the National League days, where was the motivation to keep going? Do you want to go and watch another season of what would pretty much be very, very similar football, very small budget, hoping for the best? You'd always hope for the best, but probably expect the worst. And you don't really have that inbuilt pessimism, because most fans have grown up on that. This kind of, we call it Wrexham it up, because we just think it'll all go wrong. And slowly but surely, that's kind of being weeded out of people. So, yeah, great in the sense of we've been able to build this team that can get us to the 3rd division. And, we're now dreaming of Championship football and, dare I say, Premier League one day. That is a dream. But what it's done for the area, I think, is completely priceless.
So, having watched the docu-series myself, and I think anyone who has watched it, I think, would struggle to not be positive about the story and what it's done for the fan base and the area, all that stuff we touched on. But there must be some drawbacks, right? So I don't actually know anything more than just watching the docu-series, right? So it looks great to me. But are there any drawbacks? I mean, for example, obviously you'll expect price increases, right? I imagine, because that's natural. You're going up in leagues. It should be a little bit more expensive. But is it going up astronomically? Are there fears that prices could go up astronomically with all the interest? Is it really tough to get a ticket because you're getting a lot of tourists? I mean, are there any murmurings? Do you hear any sort of Wrexham fans who maybe they're still totally on board, but they have some little, worries?
Oh, don't get me wrong. This ownership are not bulletproof from criticism. That is just a fact. No one is. And while they've done a lot right, there are gripes about various things, the price of kits, or the fact last season we didn't have a pre-season game at home. That was obviously rectified this time around. They've opened what they've called a fan zone, but now one of the executive directors has kind of admitted that was a misstep, because it's essentially hospitality. But basically they've made certain seats in our temporary stand mandatory to include this fan zone, include this hospitality at an inflated price, which went down very badly with fans who felt like they couldn't opt in or out of it. It was simply the price. And there are other things. The fact we have a temporary stand, we were meant to start construction on a permanent stand in the summer. That has now been sort of shelved for the time being while they redo designs. They're going to try and relook at the plans and see if they can improve on the initial design, which was to be a 5,500 capacity stand, a permanent stand with a roof on. And obviously right now they're working with a temporary stand as a kind of makeshift option. But there are murmurings, but also sometimes you have to check yourself, and see where we've come from. And the growth of the club in such a short period of time. I've had my own criticisms of things they've done. Maybe they've taken things away that fans always used to have. But look, I hate the phrase, the price of success, because you can do it your own way. You don't have to conform to one way you believe to get to the top. But as you say, there are elements of the club that, we've been such a community club for so long. How do you keep that trying to get to the very, very top? It's very, very difficult. And, there will be bumps along the way. And I'd say the most recent one being this debate over this mandatory fan zone, mandatory hospitality.
Is it a bit surreal to go from being a club that the average fan would be either neutral towards or maybe even respect, especially the lower league fans, to becoming like a Man City, where, for a Premier League example, they are just, universally despised? Is it surreal? Because I imagine when you were younger, it would be like me when I say I'm a Walsall fan, like no one cares. Or maybe they say, oh, yeah, I went to the racecourse once, nice ground, whatever. Now, I imagine if you meet a random person and mention that you're a Wrexham fan, if they are a fan of a National League team, a League Two team, a League One team, they're gonna, hate your club. How weird is that to come to terms with?
Yeah, I mean, slightly strange, but again, any successful team in any sport is universally despised, and essentially, if you're relevant, you're hated. That's what I say. That's what I think. I think if you're not relevant, you usually get those patronising pats on the head. Oh, wouldn't it be nice to see Wrexham get back into the Football League? Wouldn't it be nice to see them do well? And now, everybody wants Wrexham to go to the lowest level of the football pyramid and crumble and it all go horribly wrong, and everyone can have a good laugh. That's just the nature of that's just the tribalism of sport, really. I don't take any issue with it. And would I feel as bitter towards someone else if, say, our rivals had been taken over by Tom Hanks and Dwayne the Rock Johnson or something? Probably. But it's us who got lucky, and a lot of fans embrace that fume that it generates. And I think the players in a way feed off it as well, because especially people like James McLean, goes to Bolton at the weekend, is booed at every ground he goes to, and he relishes it. And I think a lot of fans have bought into that kind of mindset.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to approach it. And like you said, it's not that unique, because any successful team will get that. But what is unique is being a fan of a club which is so heavily publicized at this point. I know that they've done these Amazon documentaries about these other clubs, but that wasn't like the core of the whole journey. Whereas Wrexham's sort of entire transformation has been documented. And I wonder what that's like as a fan. I can't remember, from when I watched the series, if you pop up in it at all. I think maybe you do pop up in it a couple of times, right? If I remember.
I feel like my voice pops up in it more than maybe I've got a face for radio. I don't know, but I feel like my voice comes up in it a few times over, and that was great. It was great to play a small part in it, and I think it's great, the documentary, because it's a permanent record of as you say, that transformation. And very recently, we got told the sad news about Arthur Massey, the 100-year-old fan who sadly passed away. And, his family, his daughters, the whole fan base have a permanent record of seeing him talk about the town. And in that sense, we're very fortunate that in years to come, we can just go back and watch all the footage of some of the best moments of any fan's life, really, that, most fans won't have seen success like this for a long, long time. And you'd have to go back to sort of the days of being in Europe, playing Porto and Anderlecht. And, for a lot of fans in their 20s and 30s, that's just, they've never seen that. They've never been around that. You can think of Arsenal in the FA Cup was one amazing day. But the last few seasons, back-to-back promotions, I mean, that is historic stuff, legendary status for many of those players that managed to get us back out. So to have that on record, to see it all documented. And what I would say is there's a lot in the documentary that is very appealing, but there are things that don't make the cut, that you diehard fans that have been there day in, day out, that they know what's missing. But it's inescapable that so many people I speak to about the documentary absolutely love it. People that don't like football or they've never heard of Wrexham, and they watch it and they go, wow, when are they playing next? Are they on TV? Can I get a shirt? Can you pick me up a shirt? And that's amazing. That is my club and so many other people's club that has a global stage and is taking its chance. Ultimately, it helps when you got Ryan Reynolds in your corner. Don't get me wrong. When you've got Deadpool, Wolverine, and Paul Mullen manages to get himself into Deadpool, so it helps with stuff like that. You get on a huge platform, but it's like I say, it's a lottery ticket. It's that Willy Wonka golden ticket that there isn't a club in the EFL that can come even close to the notoriety and publicity that Wrexham gets now on a daily basis.
You mentioned those club legends that are being forged right now, and as you said, are being sort of immortalized forever through this docuseries. Obviously, it's tough to imagine because I think if you look at the whole squad and some of the players who've maybe gone over the last couple of years and the ones that have stuck around, there are so many candidates in there. But if you had to pick three, who would you say are going to go down from this period as the sort of the three biggest legends from this team?
I'd say Paul Mullin without a shadow of a doubt. It's tough because there are so many good ones. Paul Mullin definitely, and I think Elliot Lee definitely. I think those two have been so key to scoring the goals, and ultimately goals get you up. Obviously, Phil Parkinson as a manager, that's standalone. I'll pick Luke Young, who's left now. But obviously, anyone who listens to this knows I'm a massive fan of Luke Young, so that's probably get a few people laughing. But the reason I would say Luke Young is because he was with us in the National League. So he'd been with us when it was really, really bad, was our captain. And, so many people were so emotional to see him guide us into the Football League as captain. And, having been with us through some really bad times under previous management, I think he won a lot of love for that. And while he's moved on now, he served us brilliantly, captained us to promotions alongside Ben Tozer, who'd come in and was huge for us. So some people might pick Ben Tozer, but I'll go Paul Mullin, Elliot Lee, and Luke Young. And
how do you see the next few years panning out? How excited are you? Do you think there's going to be a bit of a reality check, or are you thinking, onwards and upwards, championship in the next couple of seasons? I know we've seen a couple of games already played so far in the season. So how's your optimism level?
Yeah, it wasn't that good actually going into the season. I think I predicted us ninth on my podcast in terms of where I thought we'd be just outside the playoff places. But I have to say, going to Bolton at the weekend, Bolton talking themselves up as a top 2 contender, and I thought they looked okay. I didn't think they looked at anything special. We more than held our own there, came away with a 0-0 draw, so very creditable point for us. And yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I still think we need a striker, but look, it'll take a bit more time now. That's the thing. We've had that back-to-back promotion, amazing, incredible. And we almost went up in the very first season, missing out to Stockport and then losing in the playoffs. But that game against Grimsby, crazy 5-4 game. But it's the jumps are higher now, the steps are bigger, and it takes time. And ultimately, you want to be in the league when you can compete. We can compete in League One right now. If we immediately go to the Championship, that is phenomenal. Back-to-back would be unheard of. But could we compete in the Championship financially? The money sloshing around the Championship is incredible. You've just seen Leeds go and sell Jorginho Rutter to Brighton for £40 million. Wrexham's club record buy is £500,000 on Ollie Rathbone from Rotherham. So, it feels a completely different world, the Championship. And you want to slowly build, I think, now. Momentum's an amazing thing in football, and I would never want us to sort of not go with that momentum. If we can get to the Championship straight away, amazing, do it, and then consolidate there. But if we do end up consolidating this season, it's no bad thing. It allows the football club to catch up a little bit, and it allows us to find our feet. League One's a very tough league, some very big teams in there. Bolton, I'm looking at. Birmingham have spent over £10 million. Who else have we got in there? Rotherham, Barnsley, Huddersfield, some really good teams in there. So let's see. I'm cautiously optimistic now this season that we might be able to spring a surprise or two.
Thanks, Nathan. It's been an absolute pleasure picking your brain about Wrexham, and I wish you all the best for the season and for the coming years, and look forward to seeing you in the Premier League in no time.
Yeah, let's hope. And given we love Dean Keats so much, all the best to Walsall. It's hopefully League Two. I'm sure you and all the other League Two fans are very much glad to see the back of us and Stockport County. So maybe someone can actually have a go and win it now.
That absolutely has helped us feel a lot more optimistic. Well, we've had an amazing start so far this season, but yeah, I think League Two is a lot weaker than it was last season, thanks to the likes of you guys and Stockport going away. So yeah, we're glad to see the back of you, but hopefully we'll be seeing you next year in League One. Thanks so much for listening to the Sporticos Football Stories podcast. It was such a pleasure talking to Nathan, and we can't wait to bring you more chats with fans from across the footballing landscape, from ex-pros to bloggers, YouTubers, and much more. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing. If you really liked it, give us a 5-star review wherever you get your pods. That will help us out so much. Thanks again, and catch you next time on the Sporticos Football Stories podcast.